Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. Happy holidays. We are coming to you on our last day of work. Well, my last day of work, I shouldn't say our, before the holidays. And I'm not going to think about college admissions until January 3rd when I am back, which is a total lie because my son is a senior and is applying to college, and it's probably something we're going to talk a lot about. And actually, that brings me to one of our topics today, which is how do you get through the holidays without letting other people ruin your college application process, or really get through the next few months, or for those of you who are a little younger, the next few years. So we have some thoughts about that. We are also going to be talking about what happens if you're a parent and your child comes home for the holiday break and says, I'm really unhappy and I want to transfer. So we have some tips on how to kind of talk through that, get at the root of what's really going on, and make a good choice about whether really it is the right move, and if now is the right time to make that decision. But before we get to any of that, the CARES Act is ending. What does that mean for you? Well, lucky for all of our listeners, my colleague Stacy McFeeters, who's a former financial aid officer at Emerson, at Elms, at Mount Holyoke colleges, also former VP of Education Finance and Student Loans at JP Morgan Chase, is joining us, and she's
Yep.
going to share what it means for you. Hi, Stacy.
Hi, Beth. How are you?
I'm
And
good, thanks.
for our listeners, I will be paying significant attention during the other segments because I too have a senior. So Beth and I have been in it together all this time. So
Yes, exactly. So, all right. So, a couple of weeks ago, you were on the show and we talked about loan service providers
mhm,
and changes that might be happening with those. And this is really a continuation of that conversation. And
right.
today we're really focusing on the CARES Act. And as I said a few minutes ago, it's going away. So, I guess, what does that mean?
Yep.
What's changing? Talk us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we started to tee up this conversation when we talked about the loan servicers a few weeks ago. But what we really kind of want to get to the heart of today is that on January 30th, 2022, the CARES Act provisions that pertain specifically to student loan repayment will at this point be ending.
Yes.
So what does that mean for you as a student loan borrower? Well, since March 2020, you have not been required to pay your student loans. Your interest rates have been set to zero. There has been no collection if you were in, delinquency or default. So probably, like most people, you just ignore the fact that they existed. Well, effective February 1, you need to not do that anymore. So
Yes.
realistically, what that means is all federal student loans will be requeued up for repayment, with the first payment date being expected in mid to late February, maybe early March.
Got it. Okay. So, I guess, and I could tell you that actually we're experiencing this in our own house. Well, sort of. My stepson graduated from college a year and a half ago, has yet to be in repayment.
Yeah.
But because he has me in his life, I'm sure he's thankful for that every day. He is being reminded that, hey, these are coming.
Yeah.
And so if you're not going to actually put in any payments, make any payments, you need to be getting ready or putting that money aside so that when the CARES Act ends, you are going to start. So, what should borrowers do to prepare for
Yeah.
this loan repayment coming,
Yep. So,
including
so
Ryan?
yeah, exactly. So Ryan and all the folks like him, and then the folks who had been in repayment sort of can follow similar paths. And what I mean by that is we have actually a little over 2 years worth of borrowers who have never made a payment. It's
Mm,
anybody who left school or graduated anytime after October or November of 2019. They would have entered their grace period. And while they were in their grace period, all of this began. So there's this entire population of 2 years worth of borrowers who've never paid.
yep.
Then there's this massive universe of millions of people who may have been in repayment or some version of repayment grace or forbearance, who are now going to re-enter. So by and large, there's not a lot that folks need to do differently, even if they're in one of those two different groups. I think the most important thing that I have been saying to anybody who will listen is make sure you are reading what you get in the mail or email.
Mm,
Sounds simple, sounds basic. I don't even do it.
yeah.
So if you're getting something from somebody that you don't recognize and you're assuming it's a solicitation, probably not a great idea. As we talked about in the last call, we have a lot of servicers that are transitioning. Borrowers will be moved to new servicers. We have new servicers entering the federal servicing arena. So if there's something that might say student loans or your payments or, Ed Financial, Mohila, Aidvantage, those are names you don't know, open the mail or open the email.
Yes, because you know what doesn't fly if you miss all your payments? Well, I didn't read the email or I didn't read the
Exactly.
mail. Like, nope, that's not going to work. But anyway,
Exactly.
continue.
Exactly. Nope. That's exactly right. So realistically, the first thing you need to do is to identify who you're going to be paying these loans back to. If for some reason you just can't find anything, no mail, no email, you can always log into your federal student aid website, into the federal student aid website, the same one you used to access your FAFSA. You'll use that same FSA ID and you will be able to track all of your loan history on the federal student loan side of the house. So that's what you should be doing. Identify where your loans are, figure out who your servicers are, then engage with your servicer. Go onto their online payment systems, see if they have your payments queued up yet so you know what to expect. Take a look at the repayment options if you want to try something different. So for example, most of you are going to go into what is called a standard repayment program, which means they're going to take your loan balance, they're going to divide it over 120 months. That's your payment, obviously, plus your interest.
Right.
If that feels unpalatable, there are about 15 other repayment programs that you could be looking into that might make things a little easier on you, whether it's a graduated payment or an income-based repayment program. So you can start doing all of that now. So that's kind of the first step.
Got it. Okay. And obviously, really important to get ready. So, what can borrowers expect after January 30th? Because it's changing after that. So, what happens after January 30th, 2022?
Yep. So if you haven't already started to hear from your servicers, you will. And I can tell you that we have been in communication with all of the major servicers, and we know that they're already proactively reaching out. We're already starting to see that a lot of folks are getting their first payment dates. Like I said, probably mid to late February, some as early as the beginning of March. Kind of start looking into that. So that's the first thing. If you are someone who absolutely just does not have the means or method to make payments, do not ignore it. Go back to your servicer. They have some latitude around these types of situations. From everything that we've seen in the communications, they are going to work with borrowers as much as they can.
Right.
So that's kind of the first thing. The other thing I'm going to actually caution, believe it or not, I can't believe I'm saying these words. Beth might laugh. Keep an eye on the news. So we were very confident that this was going to be the actual end of the CARES Act provisions. There were 3 extensions, the last one in September. And in September, they said this is the final extension. But there's some buzz on Capitol Hill that there are some folks who are really asking to have things reevaluated. I'm not breaking any news here. I'm just telling you that we are keeping an eye on the news as well. Best advice is be prepared. Think about how you're going to go into repayment, but you never know. Keep in touch with us, follow us on social media and in the blogs, because
Right.
you never know.
And I think when I think about this, and one of the things that I've been telling my stepson and that his father's also been echoing is you can keep kicking the can down the road, or you could just start putting the money away. Or if you pay off your loans now, right, you're paying principal and you're not,
100%.
and so you're saving yourself from having to pay more on the interest front. Like any payment you make is paying down your principal. And for anyone who's been in debt, that's the thing that ultimately kills you, is less how much money you actually initially borrowed, but it's all of the interest that you end up paying as you pay it back. So, any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on the future of student loans, bigger picture?
Yep. Yeah.
Since we're here.
Yeah. So you could not have hit the nail on the head any better. And that would have probably been my next point is, if you are someone who has not been making payments, but could have been, okay, we'll move past what could have been. You still have December, January, February that you could make payments. And it doesn't even have to be a monthly payment. It can be any amount. Let's say that you, I don't know, maybe get an end of the year bonus and you were like, well, this could be a good time. Pay down your principal. The interest rate is set to 0 until January 30th. Pay down anything that you can. Again, everything is going towards principal, 100%.
Right.
And again, any amount, whatever it might be. So that is, we've been saying that loud and clear since probably April of 2020. For those who can pay, you should be. So take advantage of that. In terms of the the student loan landscape. The $1 million question is what is going to happen with these possibilities of student loan forgiveness.
Which is why people haven't been paying
Yeah,
because they're
exactly.
holding out hope for that, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
let's talk about that.
So 100%. So again, I think we might have joked about this once or twice before in the last 18 months. We have no crystal ball. There's no way to know. There's a lot of thoughts on both sides of the equation. We won't editorialize here, but the reality is it's highly unlikely that every dollar of federal student loans is going to be forgiven.
Right.
Period. So is there a possibility of something? Perhaps. But like I've been telling the borrowers I've been talking to on a daily basis, don't count on that. This is your obligation. You signed the promissory note. You bought the steak, as they say. So now you just have to go ahead and pay for it. So plan on it. If there's some type of forgiveness, something to jumpstart the economy, that obviously would be great for everyone in student loan repayment. But right now, your plan should be figure out what you need to do, get into the right repayment program, and immediately get right back onto making your payments. There's very little latitude in terms of late payments and things of that nature. So work out your payment arrangement and kind of move forward.
Right, right. Any final words beyond that? I don't know how I could sum it up any better. It seems pretty, I mean, all I know is that, and you guys talk to families all the time, and actually you talk to working adults all the time who are trying to figure out getting their loans paid off. And my guess is there's no greater sense of relief than having a plan,
Right.
and, feeling like you are making progress. And for me, it would seem like this is a great time to make some progress. If you can, totally appreciate that some of our listeners may really be in a bad way. This pandemic
Yeah.
has been terrible, especially for some specific industries, service industries, things like that. So I don't want to not acknowledge that I get that not everyone listening can make a payment right now. But if you can, it really seems like it would be a good idea to do that.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And I think we can't underscore that last point that you just made. We've harped on making payments. We've harped on getting, anything done that you can. But for those who absolutely can't, please know that there is recourse. You can talk to your servicers. They have a lot of latitude. It's one of the very few forms of debt that you actually can kind of work your way through without just having to go into collections. So definitely don't ignore that. I think we're all super sensitive to what we're all going through. And if it's something that you just can't handle, just don't ignore it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Stacy, thanks so much for being here today and
Yeah,
sharing all of this insight. I appreciate it.
my pleasure. Take care, everyone.
All right. And we're going to take a very quick break. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about what happens if your student comes home and announces after a few months of school, they're ready to transfer. So we have some thoughts for you. So don't go away.